This is an exclusive conversation with the Saudi Minister for Industry and Mining, Minister Bandar Al Khorayef. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. You're here with a delegation, and there are meetings that are lined up. There are meetings that you've had. Take us through what are the key takeaways from the meetings and what are the expectations from your visits to India.
Thank you very much, and it's really a great pleasure to be here in India and representing my government of Saudi Arabia. I think we need, first of all, to really appreciate the great connection between the two countries and especially the two leaders, which create great foundation for us as government officials to work hard to ensure that this relation is really capitalized on what we are doing from trade, investment, and different activities. What is for us important today in Saudi is diversifying our economy, and for me in my portfolio, I think India is one of the very few countries where most of what we are trying to do is we can find expertise, we can find partnerships, we can find knowledge and know-how which can be also transferred, and we can also from the other side, we can see also a lot of compatibility with regards to raw materials that are available in Saudi, especially with our investment now more and more in mining, and how can we be a long-term partner with India and India's industrial base. So from those angles, there is a lot that we can talk about. Definitely, we enjoy a great volume of trade, which we would like to grow and make more value-added products to be part of this trade between the two countries, which will definitely involve agreements, logistics, freight, shipping lines, and so on, to ensure that the ecosystem between the two countries in terms of activities are well for the private sector to benefit from.
Right. You spoke about diversification, so let's just focus on that a little. We do know that, like you said, the leadership is quite connected, and irrespective of that, we've seen the Crown Prince, we've seen MBS really focus on how to move just away from fossil fuels to other sectors, including the service sector. So in terms of deliverables, what are the areas specifically that you're focused on when it comes to India and diversifying Saudi Arabia's economy?
Well, I think today with India, for example, India is a large importer of fertilizers from Saudi Arabia, and Saudi Arabia is one of the largest fertilizer exporters globally. So we today are the number 4 global exporter of fertilizers. We will grow our fertilizer business by 50%, which will lead us to be number 1 or number 2. We have been discussing yesterday with the Minister of Fertilizer and Chemicals, renewing the agreement that we had in the past and increasing the quantities, and also having the agreement for a longer period of time. And this shows really the long-term commitment that we have as two countries. Of course, India is a very large market for agriculture and agricultural products. It's a very important sector for the country and for the people. And for us to be playing a significant part in that is quite important, and we see it growing with time also.
Apart from industries, we are also looking at mineral resources, and you just spoke about that, but there's one aspect of your visit that focuses on electric vehicles. Batteries are very important. Lithium is going to become very important. What's the kind of cooperation? Because I do see that you aim to manufacture about 300,000 electric vehicles by the year 2030. What's the kind of cooperation that the two countries are going to look at? Because everybody is moving towards clean energy, and India has made headway in this sector. So what's the kind of cooperation on that front?
Well, I think the cooperation is from different angles. So, on the automotive business, India is a large producer of automotive parts, and this is a very important component. So regardless if it's EV or traditional cars, you will need the parts, you will need the frames, you will need all of the components that are needed for car manufacturing. And this is, so many of my meetings with private sector here is actually with automotive suppliers who see that Saudi Arabia is a great place to also expand their offering and business to cater for the Saudi 300,000 car business, but also the local market also. So we intend to produce 300,000 cars, but we consume more than that. We are probably going to reach almost 1 million by 2030. So we are now running at 700,000 cars. In addition, we believe Saudi Arabia could be a great hub for export to the region and be closer to their customers. So this is a very important element of the discussion that we are doing. Now, with regard to minerals, I think Saudi Arabia also is very rich with minerals. We have updated our mineral resource value from 1.3 trillion to 2.5 trillion dollars, which is a great jump, and it shows the value of the minerals. So far, lithium is not one of these. We don't have the quantities or the quality of, but we are exploring the country as we go. But we believe Saudi Arabia could be a place to manufacture batteries because of the chemical side of the business, because of the aluminium side also, where the battery pack is also mainly aluminium. There is a lot of synergy that can be put in place. And finally, our competitiveness in the energy.
Right. We are also looking at competitive incentives in the mining sector. If you could elaborate on what that really means.
Well, when we launched our mining strategy, we focused on three things. One is to explore the country more and more. The country was not well explored. So we started by taking all of the history that has been done in the past. We launched a program with our geological survey to explore Saudi Arabia, but also we try to incentivize private sector to do more exploration. Exploration is normally not the best part of mining because it takes time and there is a lot of risk. So we introduced a program to incentivize junior miners or junior explorers who are small entrepreneurs or startups or SMEs that can start with smaller scale and do the proper work before reaching certainty on the amount and the concentration of the different minerals, and they can sell this license to larger players.
You're also going to Bombay, to Mumbai. So what are your industry meetings that you're expecting to hold? And who are the big players, so to say, industrialists, who you'd be talking about investing and inviting investments into Saudi Arabia?
Many of the meetings that we are having is also with private sector. I think there is a lot of interest, generally speaking, about Saudi Arabia. Indians, they have a great attitude towards, taking opportunities outside their country. Everywhere you go, you find Indians are always, they take risk, and they have a nature of really trying to understand what's new and moving much faster than others. So, and really my discussions and my meetings is not only with large corporates. We are also very much interested in entrepreneurs, especially we believe that the future of manufacturing is going to be based in technology, AI, robotics, 3D printing, and these things are still developing. So we are also meeting with small players, even entrepreneurs, to explain what we are doing in Saudi, and if there is any chance that we can help them or convince them to come and test some of their ideas. It's a great place to test also ideas. And this is even, we have seen this in the Future Mineral Forum when we invited technology providers and technology and solution providers for mining, which is normally mining is not a sector that adapts very quickly to technology. But we were very surprised, actually, very pleasantly surprised to see that some small players, entrepreneurs, have great ideas that helped mines become more safer mines, more productive, and more energy efficient. So we have we are not grouping people as with size, but rather with aspiration and what is the future can bring to Saudi Arabia. That's
good to know. In a day and age right now, when we are seeing so much of conflict and instability in the world, there is a need to focus on how to bring about stability, especially in the industrial and the marketing and manufacturing sectors. How do the two countries align themselves in a scenario of instability across the world, particularly in your region in West Asia, in the Middle East?
I think this is a great question. I think this is really the most important discussion on G2G, because when we looked at mining, for example, as a sector, we realized it's a sector where you need to have great collaboration on a global scale, because you may have the material in one side of the world and you need to do processing in another place, and then you have the manufacturing so it is very important to look at the different synergies that are making sense. I gave the example of the fertilizers, and of course our investment in our phosphate and fertilizers is driven by the demand of the countries that we work with and we have a long-term relationship. In aluminium, as we are doing a similar, Saudi Arabia is a small market relative to usage of different materials, and especially in raw material. So we will definitely export a lot of these materials to countries where there is more demand and more activity. So from that angle, I think we are trying to understand each other's requirement and where can we complement each other from on an industrial level. But I think technology is going to be key, and India is a great place. You have a lot of technology that is, you have people who are very well educated, who have great advantage when it comes to building the next wave of technology, and this is very inspiring for us also, seeing how we can integrate this to what we are doing. And also when we look at downstream chemicals, for example, Saudi Arabia today is exporting most of our petrochemicals. Almost 85% of our petrochemical is exported. We see great opportunity to go downstream with petrochemicals, so we are looking at joint ventures or co-investments with Indian companies who have the know-how, who have the expertise, who need this material that can we can give them access for material with more preferable terms in terms of allocation of quantities, but also on pricing, indexing, and these kind of arrangements.
Right. In terms of industrial competitiveness and connectivity, the IMEC project was very important. The India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, but it came at a time when we suddenly saw the Israel-Hamas conflict, and it has put the entire project on hold in many ways than one. Where do you see that headed? Do you see a future for IMEC? And how do you see that vision fructify?
I think if you look at the components and the rationale behind it, a lot of the activities will continue to happen one way or another. It will be definitely, when you package them all in one project, it makes it also more, I would say, faster tracked. And but I don't. I believe that the component of the different activities can continue. Both Saudi Arabia and India are continuing their, their energy investment and renewable also targets. So definitely there comes time where we can see a lot of synergies coming on that also.
You also have to manage a lot of your relations with various countries. There is balancing of ties between India and China. We have Trump now in the administration in the United States of America. Is there going to be a major push and thrust because US and Saudi Arabia are allies? There's going to be major focus on normalization of ties yet again with Israel. In such a scenario, how do you see and how do you place Saudi Arabia in the region going forward, keeping ties in mind, because the connectivity project did go through Israel, through the Haifa port?
I think the Saudi Arabia have proven throughout its history that it has a balanced relation with different countries, and it managed to have this balance. Our most important criteria is our national interest, and this is really what drives our relation. Definitely, Saudi Arabia is very keen to work to bring stability to the region, which is very important to us as a country. The neighborhood is a neighborhood where it needs a lot of focus, where we can bring more and more stability. So I'm very sure that our government will do its best to ensure that the region is stabilized, and it will take all the measures needed to achieve that, because this is what creates the stability between all of the countries, the neighboring countries, which will allow the whole region really to progress and grow. And hopefully this is not only for our Saudi Arabia, but I mean the whole region will benefit. And one of the difficulties that we are seeing, for example, in supply chain disruption is the instability that is always creating this risk of investment, especially in infrastructure, where the lack of infrastructure is a main component of the disruption of the supply chain. And when we see Africa, for example, how can we bring Africa also to the picture when it comes to mining and minerals? Without Africa, for example, there will not be, we cannot meet the transition targets, because we need the resources also there. But the resources there will need investment, will need, political also will and stability, and will need infrastructure. Without this is not going to happen. So, in my opinion, Saudi Arabia is very well positioned to actually play a positive role in the stability of the region, and that will have a great impact also on our economy.
Just one more question on stability before I move to labor and other issues. In terms of stability, we've seen Saudi Arabia play a very important and crucial role in this past months of instability. We've seen that there is some normalization with some semblance of ceasefire that we're seeing right now. But Saudi Arabia came out quite strong. Your foreign minister at the United Nations at various quarters had said that there can be no relations with Israel, no forward movement unless and until you see some stability and recognition when it comes to Palestine. How do you balance the cause for Palestine that Saudi Arabia espouses with what is going to happen right now with Israel and the United States of America, and looking at diversification within Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think, as you said, our Foreign Minister, I made it very clear, our position is very clear, and that position continues to be the position of Saudi Arabia. And of course, he has the job to react to different activities that are happening. So, but again, the most important criteria for us is really stability in the region and our national interest.
Shifting focus to labor. As Industries Minister, somebody who focuses and works so much and so closely with the manufacturing sector and companies, for India, a major concern has always been labor force and treatment of labor force. What's the kind of conversations or cooperation that the two countries are looking at in ensuring that labor and concerns of labor are really looked into and taken into account?
Well, labor is not my area of responsibility, but labor and human capital in general is a very important component for manufacturing. So we are very mindful of the fact that without having the right structure to have an ecosystem that allows our own people to in terms of education, skilling, reskilling and upskilling, all of these activities, it's part of what we are doing also in our broader, I would say, industry and mining strategy. But at the same time, we know the limitations that we have as a country, and that's why we also have a lot of expats, and we encourage skilled labor to come join forces with us. And there's a clear policy with this regard, and we view India and Indian labor, not only the labor but all of the workforce really is one of the best, from history, from our in the last since our development in the 70s. The Indian contribution has been great one. I used to be in the private sector, and we had a lot of colleagues from India, and I think it's one of the most valuable value that we get also from our relation with India.
Right. I'm being told that we're running out of time, but I have just two more very important questions. One is to do with, again, sticking with labor. What's the kind of investments that we can look at from Saudi Arabia to India? It's not just from India to Saudi Arabia. And in terms of mobility, a lot of employment jobs is what India also looks at. In that, what's the kind of job opportunities that Indians can look at in the industry sector in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I will start with the investment. I think we view India as a great place. We have great developments and growth, and I'm sure that investors from Saudi, and we see a lot of them, especially in our area where I'm responsible. But there is a broader, investment, I would say, activities here in India, and we have also the PIF, which is our national fund, is looking at Indian economy and different activities and different opportunities, and so that's from the investment side. From the employment side, I think every plant that will be built in Saudi, in a joint venture with Indian companies or directly, will definitely bring a lot of workforce, and many of which will come from India. Today, our workforce, for example, in our industrial sector, the percentage of Saudis is less than 30%. So 70% is expats, and it would probably continue like this, especially in this diversifying phase that we are having, which will allow creating a lot of jobs inside the country, but not necessarily only for the Saudi citizens, but also for workers from abroad.
And my final question to you, you seeking diversification in Saudi Arabia. India sought diversification in the recent past when it comes to oil. We've moved, and petrochemicals included, so that's why I'm asking you this question. We've moved from our dependency only on West Asia, which is what you call Middle East, to Russia as well, which has led to oil prices not being controlled by one body alone. How does Saudi Arabia view India's slow movement towards buying a lot of Russian oil?
We respect any nation that looks at its national interest, and this is global trade. It's no country will depend on one country alone. I come from private sector, and this was, it was like a sin in private sector to rely only on one supplier. So we don't take it personally. We value the relation as it is, but that relation also entails that we respect each other's decision when it comes to our national interests. And if India is doing it for its national interest, we definitely understand that.
Just one final question. How do you look at Trump's fears of de-dollarization of the petro economy?
Well, you need to ask him. I don't know about what he feels about it.
All right. On that note, on that really nice, humorous note, Minister Bandar Al Khorayef, thank you so much for joining us here on the India Today Network. Indeed, a pleasure. Hope your trip goes well and the visit is a real success. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.